What happened on July 13th? The Blessed Virgin opened her hands, as she had done on May 13th and June 13th, and light came from the palms of her hands. And this light fell on the ground in front of the Blessed Virgin, between the Blessed Virgin and the children. In May, when she opened her hands, the light fell on their hearts, and they had an experience of what it was like to be in heaven. In June 13th, when Our Lady opened her hands, the light fell on them again, but there was two different kinds of light. One that fell on Jacinta and Francesco, and then went up to heaven, and the light from the other hand fell on Lucia, and it went down to the earth. And they understood in this light, the light that went on Francesco and Jacinta told them their vocation was to soon die and go to heaven. But the light that fell on Lucy was that she was to stay longer on earth. The Blessed Virgin didn't only give them these interior inspirations, but she also explained it in words as well. And so on July 13th, when she opened her hands for the third time, the third apparition, the light this time did not fall on the children, it fell on the ground in front of them. And the children looked at the light, and they saw below the face of the earth. They saw what Lucy describes in her memoirs as follows. We saw, as it were, a vast sea of fire, in which were plunged, all blackened and burnt, demons and souls in human form, like transparent embers. Raised into the air by the flames, they fell back in all directions, like sparks in a huge fire, without weight or poise, amidst loud cries and horrible groans of pain and despair, which caused us to shudder and tremble with fear. The demons were distinguished by the horrible and repellent forms of terrible unknown animals, like embers of fire, black yet transparent. This scene lasted an instant, and we must thank our Heavenly Mother, who had prepared us beforehand by promising to take us to heaven with her. Otherwise, I believe that we should have died of fear and terror. The children looked up to the Blessed Virgin, and she said, "You have seen hell, where the souls of poor sinners go. To save them, God wills to establish in the world devotion to my Immaculate Heart." That is the first part of the secret. And that sentence of Our Lady is central to the whole Fatima message. God, you have seen hell where poor sinners go. God wills to save them. God wills to establish in the world devotion to my Immaculate Heart. Saint Bernard tells us, and Saint Alphonsus also in his Glories of Mary tells us, that it has never been known that anyone who's persevered in his devotion to the Blessed Virgin till his death has ever been lost. And so God, this is not supposed to be a secret, but it has been kept as a secret, and God wants people to know the importance, the usefulness, the beauty, and above all, I would say, the necessity of devotion to the Blessed Virgin. And so that is why God wills to establish in the world devotion to the Immaculate Heart of Mary, so that many more souls will be saved. Now God has a plan, and that plan is explained in the second part of the secret and in the conclusion of the secret. We don't have the third secret, despite what the Vatican tells us, but we certainly know what the second part of the secret is. The Blessed Virgin continued to speak and said, "This war will soon end, but if mankind does not amend, then God will punish the world by means of war, famine, persecution of the Church, and persecution of the Holy Father. To prevent this, that is, to prevent these chastisements, I will come back to ask for the consecration of Russia and for the communions of reparation on the first Saturday. If my requests are granted, many souls will be saved and there will be peace. If my requests are not granted, many souls, as understood, will be condemned. If my requests are not granted, Russia will spread her errors throughout the world, raising up wars and persecutions against the Church. The good will be martyred, the Holy Father will have much to suffer, various nations will be annihilated." The third part of the secret starts with the words, "But in Portugal, the dogma of faith will always be preserved," etc. The rest of the secret is not told. It is in the words of Our Lady, the secret. Then the Blessed Virgin, the conclusion of the secret is, "But in the end, my Immaculate Heart will triumph. The Holy Father will consecrate Russia. to me, Russia will be converted and a period of peace given to mankind. We have then the plan of the Blessed Virgin, the plan of God more exactly, to bring about the establishment in the world of devotion to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. And it is twofold. I will come back to ask for the consecration of Russia. I will come back to ask for the communion of reparation to my Immaculate Heart. And so the Blessed Virgin fulfilled her promise, saying she would come back. On December the 10th, 1925, the Blessed Virgin returned with the child Jesus. She returned to Lucy in Pontevedra. Pontevedra is a Spanish city north of the Portuguese-Spanish border by about an hour. And on December 10th, 1925, Lucy describes what happened to her. She was at that time 18 years old. She had just entered the novitiate of the Dorothean Sisters. Here's how she writes about it. She writes about it in the third person. She's describing herself in the third person. Here's what she says. On December 10th, 1925, the Most Holy Virgin appeared to her, and by her side, that is by the Blessed Virgin's side, elevated on a luminous cloud, was the child Jesus. The Most Holy Virgin rested her hand on her shoulder. The Blessed Virgin put her left hand on Lucy's shoulder. Lucy is kneeling in front of them. Our Lady puts her left hand on her shoulder. The child Jesus is on Our Lady's right. And the Blessed Virgin with her right hand is holding her Immaculate Heart circled with thorns. The Most Holy Virgin rested her hand on her shoulder, and as she did so, she showed her a heart circled by thorns, which she was holding in her other hand. At the same time, the child Jesus said, "Have compassion on the heart of your mother. Have compassion on the heart of your most holy mother, covered with thorns, with which ungrateful men pierce it at every moment, and there is no one to make an act of reparation to remove them." Then the Most Holy Virgin said, "Look, my daughter, at my heart, surrounded with thorns, with which ungrateful men pierce me at every moment by their blasphemies and ingratitude. You at least try to console me, and announce in my name that I promise to assist at the moment of death with all the graces necessary for salvation all those who on the first Saturday of 5 consecutive months shall confess, receive Holy Communion, recite 5 decades of the Rosary, and keep me company for 15 minutes while meditating on the 15 mysteries of the Rosary, with the intention of making reparation to me." That then is the simple request for the 5 first Saturdays. You see the child Jesus, about 12 years old, he's standing on a cloud. He speaks first, and he says, "Behold the heart of your mother." The Blessed Virgin is our mother, and he's reaffirming that to us as he did on the cross. So he's telling us today that she is our mother. I did my thesis on the Blessed Virgin as our spiritual mother, and I must say, before I did that, I thought that it was just a pious title, that the Blessed Virgin was simply the Mother of God, but she was our mother as a manner of speaking. But literally it is true, the Blessed Virgin is our mother, that the Blessed Virgin generates us into the life of sanctifying grace, and that without her maternal action we would not have grace in our soul, and that it is proper, and she's as much as our mother as our own natural mother. She is the mother of the pre-existing person of the second person of the Blessed Trinity in his human nature, but she is the mother of the pre-existing person of ourselves in our supernatural life. It is a true motherhood. She really is our mother. And you can find it in Roskini, you can find it also in Father Garrigou-Lagrange, you'll find it in the Doctors of the Church. It's common doctrine of the teaching of the theologians.